Hi there, Jamie Oliver Garande here with my wife Sarah. We're doing a session today which we've called Destructive Relationship Patterns. We just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about relationships and some of the patterns that we've experienced, some of the patterns we've observed in relationships that are absolutely destructive to the success of any sort of relationship. So we wanted to talk about that today, and we welcome you onto this particular session. We trust it will be of tremendous value to you. So we're going to be talking about destructive relationship patterns. How have you been today?
I've been good, baby. How about you?
Good. Had a good day.
Yeah.
Kids are in bed.
Oh, praise God.
So it'll be a good time for us just to be able to talk, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're in a marriage. We really believe the stuff that we're going to talk about is really going to be a blessing to you.
Hi, Grace.
Chennai!
Hi,
Chennai, dear Chennai. I'm so glad you're on here. So we're talking about relationship
Hi, Keith.
patterns,
Oh, wow. Hi, Leslie.
and we were actually going to call this relationship is driving me nuts, because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about are the things that we experience in relationships that are really, really frustrating. But hopefully if we talk about them and address them, we can bring some answers and solutions that will help you as well.
Yeah. Let's go for it, babe.
Excellent. Okay, so we wanted to talk about these.
Who's that? Max Link. Sorry.
Max. Good to see you on here.
Hey, Dennis.
Hey, Dennis. Are you well?
It's good to see you on here.
I understand you're up in Birmingham, eh?
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Mel. Thank you. And guys, let's keep this as interactive. Feel free to sort of like pitch in, ask questions, and let's sort of like bash this thing, to and fro. And yeah, not just Jay and I, but feel free for us to talk. Oh my gosh,
Patsy. Bless you.
Oh, Tina. Okay, good. Oh gosh, good. We've got about 30 people on, so let's get started.
Excellent. Okay, so our story, just a little quickly. We've been married now. This is 23 years.
Yep.
23 years. It's going to be 24 years next year. The following year, 25. So we've got 25 years in our sights, and we're so excited about that. But it's been 23 years, and I've been saying all of this year that 23 is my favorite number, not just because of Michael Jordan, but also because I get the opportunity to be married to this woman
Thank
for
you,
that
Grace.
long. So we're quite excited about. I'm quite excited about that. Brilliant, great to have you on here. Congratulations on your book.
Yes, Mr. Pongo.
My big brother Tapiwa is on here, all the way from the US.
Oh wow.
Bless you. So so thankful that you could be on this call.
Okay.
So we're talking about relationship, destructive relationship patterns.
Yeah.
And the first one that we wanted to begin to deal with here is one of the things that we have observed is a big issue in relationships. And it's undressing each other. That's what we've called it, undressing each other.
One another in public, to friends, speaking negatively and unfaithfully about your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, to people. Maybe you're upset, or the girls are having a chat and you start undressing your spouse and talking about all his weaknesses, flaws, bad habits, and literally undressing your spouse to your friends. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest issues, and we've actually got a couple of pictures here, which I think will illustrate very, very aptly what we're referring to here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see these pictures.
Hold on. You know what? I just want to talk about this a little bit more.
Go for it.
It's so important to cover one another. Love covers. And in a relationship, in marriage, you've got to learn to cover one another. Never undress one another. Never publicly trash your spouse. We've been around people sometimes where, a couple's not getting along, and you start pulling down your wife, pulling down your husband, speaking to them like a child, and undressing them. What you don't realize is that when you talk about your spouse negatively to people behind their back, you're literally undressing themselves. And we've got two images which I hope you'll find funny, but they really they really bring the point home. I think if I go around talking about Jamie and pulling him down and belittling him to my friends and to my loved ones, It's like me walking around thinking I am fully clothed, but you know what? I've got my skirt and my dress tucked inside of my knickers, and my backside is showing. You know, it's you're walking around, and you know you look good and you sound good, but then you're pulling down your spouse. So in many ways, you're actually undressing your own self and exposing things that you shouldn't. Love covers. You're supposed to nurture. You're supposed to cover. You're supposed to protect. Because even when you work on those things and you've moved on, your friends will always remember that undressing that you did of your spouse, of your marriage, of your home, of whatever it is that you're discussing. Yeah.
I was going to say, you know, in our one of the other videos we did, we spoke about the fact that when we first got married, you know, we're very young in the game. And anytime we had a problem, we'd talk about it to everybody. You know, anybody who asked you, they'd say to you, you know, how's Sarah doing? And we'd say, you know, and you'd go on a diatribe about how bad she was treating you. But as you get a little bit older and a bit more mature, you begin to understand that whenever you expose her in that way and expose your business in that way, you're exposing yourself. And so even though she's going out there and she thinks that everything is fine, she's actually exposed. And that's what that picture really shows. You know, and there's another picture actually I just want you to show.
Show that one.
No, you can show this one because
well, I suppose this one can be broken down. If you're multilingual, you know, you'll understand, you know.
You can
you're
see this
walking
picture.
around and your backside is literally exposed because you're exposing your relationship and you're exposing things that you ought to be working on, praying about, dealing with in the background, but you're just putting it out there for public consumption. And you're not just humiliating your spouse, but you're actually humiliating yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's such a huge issue because one of the things that we've observed, it even boils down to when your spouse is maybe doing something in public that you don't like or something that you don't necessarily agree with. You know, there's a way to deal with it. It's not one of those where you feel like you need to dress them down in public. Because people have a tendency, if you do that in public, then, you know, they may react in a way that you do not like. And you put your relationship on, you know, in a very, very bad place.
And I mean, depending on who you're dealing with, you know, there's a king and a fool in all of us. And,
that's a good saying.
You know, if I know for a fact, I don't know about you ladies and who you're married to, but if I try and undress my man in public, that's just a no and a recipe for complete disaster because, you know, I don't bring the king out, but, you know, put it that way, and I'll just humiliate myself. So I know better than to try and dress him down or to address him in a disrespectful way in front of people in public. It's something I think we learned very early in marriage because it becomes a no holds barred, you know, because I think we both come from different crazies, you know.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, when you first start out, you learn very quickly that it's not the right way to go. You know, like Sarah said, there's a king and a fool in every man, and you know, whoever you speak to will respond. And even if you know, there've been times over the years, I didn't like it much when we first started doing it, but you know, she would have certain very positive and very necessary counsel that she would give me in public, you know, about how I was supposed to carry myself and how I was supposed to behave. And I didn't really like it.
But I wouldn't say out loud.
But she'd never say it out loud.
Sat together, you know, somewhere in a meeting, I'll just, you know, sort of say, you know, sort of square your shoulders, you know, sit up, or I'll write it down. You know, it's just, I want you to always project and present, you know, a good image. So
Absolutely.
Again, that's me also now just being wife and trying to
very important
to, you know, your best interest, preserve your best interest.
No, 100%. But we realized that there was a way to do it. There was a way to do it with honor, because, you know, you've heard it said, you know, so many times that a man's greatest need is respect.
Absolutely.
And when a man feels disrespected, you can be telling him the most important, the most impactful, and the most necessary things he needs to hear, but he's not going to hear it, because if you don't respect him, then whatever you say is nonsense. It's noise as far as he's concerned. So we've come to understand that.
Absolutely.
It's and I can't overemphasize this.
Yes, Joe, and different crazies. You know it. Your family.
Pastor Patrick, bless you. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate that. And I know Max asked a question, but I didn't. It kind of whizzed by. I didn't get a chance
there's no
to.
way of,
there is.
Okay, there is.
Okay, Max, let's try and deal with that. So where do you draw the line between undressing your spouse and seeking counsel about your partner from third parties? let's say you have problems in your relationship.
Okay, and I suppose see things differently, maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's see.
Yeah. Okay, carry on, baby.
Okay, so where do you draw the line between undressing and seeking counsel?
I think seeking counsel is good. Just make sure you're seeking counsel from a truly trusted source. A mature couple as well, or mature source, someone who has also walked where you're walking. Sometimes there's no use in asking someone who absolutely has no idea about the things that you're dealing with, because they can't contextualize, so there's nothing wrong, I think, in a safe environment to talk about things and to discuss issues and to gain wisdom and to gain understanding on an issue, so what I mean when I talk about undressing in public is when you're literally belittling your spouse and disrespecting your spouse and showing everyone that you're upset with your spouse in public. I think that is so humiliating. We've seen that with a few couples where she's not happy that day and she'll make it known to everyone that, he's in the doghouse. And it's such an uncomfortable experience, not only for the husband or the wife who it's being done to, but also those of us who are around, So it's important to, if you're going to seek counsel, do it in a safe environment.
Do it in a safe environment. And as I said, the counsel of people who've walked the walk, people who have a story, people who have, an example that you can also emulate. It's not enough to just want to take counsel, but you've got to take counsel from people who can give you proper counsel. And that's very, very important. But as you say, Sarah, we've learned over the years the importance of, even when you're going to have differences, there's a forum. You learn how to behave in public, and behind closed doors, when it's just the two of you, you can sit down and you can talk about the stuff that's gone wrong. It's very, very important to do it in the right forum.
Okay, I can see. You're asking, what if he keeps on doing things you've asked him not to do in public, and you've talked about it, for example, talking too much and not knowing where to stop? I think it's maybe discuss, even cues, I don't know if cues work for you. I've tried kicking my husband under the table, a few times, and he'll sort of be like, why are you kicking me? So I think you need to discuss,
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. You need to have, what's the little man's code name? Pineapples. You need to have a code name, code words to sort of like, when you're in public, to the way that you look at him, or maybe you can text him if you're able to, but you've got to have the discussion. Have it when you're calm, have it when you're not feeling inflamed and angry and upset with him, because when you have it when you're upset and a little bit irate, you come off with that tone where you're accusing him, and he feels disrespected, and then he sort of like takes he feels like his back is up against a wall. So it's important to do it in a neutral environment when everything is a little bit calm, and just talk to him, and also let him know how it makes you feel. Let him know how it makes you feel when he sort of maybe dominates or hogs a conversation and goes on and on and on.
I wanted to just touch on that a little bit. Yeah. So, one of the things that we've learned, and I don't know whether it's as a result of, a little bit more time spent in marriage, but I definitely remember, that when we were much younger, and it's immaturity really, but I didn't really like to be told stuff that I was doing wrong. You always wanted to hear the good stuff, and so you'd cover things and you'd sweep it under the carpet. But as you get a little bit older and you begin to mature, you also realize that some of the things that you need for your personal development are the things that you don't necessarily want to hear. And who's better qualified to say things to you than the person who knows you better than anybody else? And so over the years, it's with great interest, I've watched our relationship evolve, where I'm actually saying to Sarah, I want you to tell me the things that I need to work on. I want you to tell me the things that, I'm doing wrong so that I can become better. And that comes with age and time. But it also comes with me being in a place where I'm comfortable, because I know that she has my best interests at heart. And I know that she respects me. So when she's speaking to me and she's giving me counsel, I actually take it on board, because I know that she genuinely respects me. So maybe one of the things that, you know, as a suggestion is that level of honor, because when we feel like people honor us, then we're able to take whatever counsel that they're giving us.
Wow. Thank you, Much. That's great, honey. There's something Dennis asked: should one seek counsel from parents? I think there's nothing wrong with seeking counsel from parents, but if it's got to do as well with your spouse, how you present your spouse to your parents can make or break. You know, it's one you've got to deal with very carefully. It depends on what kind of counsel it is that you're seeking, but your parents will always be your parents. I believe in most cases our parents always want have our best interest at heart, and so generally they'll give the best advice to the best of their knowledge and experience and understanding, but it's important that we cover our spouses when we go before our parents.
I think there's also something to be said about having people who are not maybe even your parents who you can go to. I know over the years we've had, there was one couple in particular, pastors. They were pastors of ours from the time we were very, very young, and we were very comfortable going to them because we could just be ourselves. One of the challenges with parents is it depends on your parents, because if you've got parents who are partisan, you know, so they tend to take sides, then it creates a real problem in the relationship, you know. But if you've got parents who can understand that these are both our children and we've got their best interests at heart, then by all means it's worth talking to them. But you've got to be careful that you don't use your parents as a crutch, you know, where you're running to them all the time, and you recognize that there are actually some things that you need to be able to work through on your own, and not necessarily, you know, you sort of take your parents on an emotional journey all the time. Absolutely. Is very important.
Yeah. Chioma is asking, please, what can I do? Because I really feel frustrated, and I feel I talk to people I don't need to just to seek advice, but it's getting too much. What can I do? Because I really need help. I really think it's first, the fact that you're aware of this being a problem is a really good thing, and I think you just really need to sort of measure your conversations and even how much you're divulging and how much you're revealing to people, because at the front of your mind has always got to be, am I protecting my husband? Am I protecting my marriage? Is what I'm doing? You've got to ask yourself, is what I'm saying right now something I could say in front of him? And if you know you cannot say that in front of him, you've got to check already. You've got to check. And the fact that you're aware of the fact that maybe you're talking too much, you sound like you also even have a check in your spirit. Our hearts know right from birth. We know when we're doing something wrong. So there is that inner voice right now that will be telling you that, you know what, I think you're revealing way too much. And I think just learn to just don't divulge as much.
Yeah, it's important to temper those conversations, you know, and be aware of who you're speaking to. Because remember, we showed those pictures of being undressed. One of the worst things to do is to be with people in public and they know stuff about you and you don't even know that they know, but they're looking at your spouse in a funny way because of stuff that you've revealed. You know, it's important to know who to go to. It's important to know who to turn to. And it's important, critically, to open the lines of communication within the relationship, because that's really the place where things need to be resolved in the first instance. And then obviously if it's not working there, then you seek external help.
Let's talk. Oh wow, okay, Tapiwa and Nyamondoro. 2 very good books I read on relationships and understanding each other. Yes, The 5 Love Languages and Personality Plus. They're amazing books. I love what you guys are doing. Thank you so much, Tapiwa. Thank you so much. Guys, do get a hold. Hi, it's Bamkuro Ian Henny. Grab a hold of those books, and grab a hold of books, guys. There's so many resources out there that can help our marriages. Another really good resource and relationship and marriage ministry is Jimmy and Karen Evans. Brilliant. They talk on marriage. They also got married early, like Jamie and I. They got married at 19. They actually were at the same junior school. We were at the same junior school, but didn't know each other. You know, he was already stalking me.
I was smarter.
Yeah, is that right? we're at the same junior school, but I was a couple of years behind Jamie,
Yeah.
you know. And then my parents left. We went to another city, and then came back. And then I met him when I started high school. And the same story as well as for Jimmy and Karen Evans. They met early, started dating about 16, got married 19, and they've been together all these years. A brilliant marriage resource. So please, you know, guys, grab a hold of marriage resources and information, because it surrounds us all over.
It's available. You know, one of the saddest things about, and that's a very important point. It's amazing how little people invest in terms of, you know, books and resources on marriage, and we kind of just figure out, we think we just know the answers.
Yeah.
I've noticed something. You look at a lot of people's libraries; they'll have books on personal finance, they'll have books on personal development, they'll have books on anything, you know, but they very rarely have books on marriage, and it's very important for you to understand. None of us are born with all the answers.
Yeah.
You know, somebody has experienced what you're going through. Somebody's written very good counsel on it. Put it in a book which you can buy for $8.99, $9.99. But a lot of times we don't take advantage of that. Right. And you know, somebody put it like this one time. They said, you know, most of us do all of our learning by the time we're age 18, and then we spend the rest of our lives defending what we already know. What a travesty! What a travesty! You know, there's more information available now than ever before, and some of it is in audiobooks, some of it's in, you know, hardcover books, hard copies, but it's out there. Discover it, find it out, and invest in it so that you can be a better spouse for that person God has blessed you with.
Absolutely.
Max, in your 23 years or so of marriage, what's that question? In your 23 years or so of marriage, can you see or define certain seasons within your relationship? And if so, what were those seasons? That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Do you want to weigh in? Because I can see them.
There've been seasons. Well, when we got married, to be honest, we really were kids, and I'd grown up with boys, and Jay comes from a family that's mostly guys. He's got, you know, there's 8 boys, and he's got 2 sisters. And so when we started, we acted like siblings a bit. You know, there's the rough and tumble and rowdy play.
Wrestling.
Yeah. And then when my, you know, like early 20s, 22, 23 is about the time I started wearing makeup. And I think I really became even more aware of my femininity. And I didn't want that anymore, but you didn't. You were still in that boy zone, you know, chasing and everything, and we struggled with that for a bit, you know, because at the time I didn't know how to communicate. My greatest fear was if I communicate and I hurt him, so I wouldn't say anything, and if anything, that was just so devastating to our marriage, because then I'd sort of like retreat into a shell, because I don't want to talk about it, because I don't want to offend him, and he's trying to figure out what's wrong with me, and then by the time it comes out, it's not just that, but it's that and like a million gazillion other things. Other seasons in marriage.
When children come.
Yes, when children come. You talk about that one.
Well, you know, just before we even talk about the children, it's so true, because when we were growing up, the first few years of our marriage, you're dealing with somebody. It was like having a sister, even though she's your wife. And then you begin to see this woman morph and evolve into a very mature woman. And you begin to understand this kind of behavior, you know, where I chase her everywhere, you know, and arm wrestle her and, you know, put her in an arm grip and a headlock. And that stuff, it's not appropriate anymore because she's matured. And then you begin to see her and then you have to mature, because otherwise, you know, they say women are already more mature than men. So if you're dealing with that kind of dynamic.
Because I remember struggling with feeling at a time that, you know, those days that you were immature.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm praying and I'm sort of like saying, God, I need a man. I want a man,
not a boy.
Not a boy. I enjoyed the season when he was a boy and everything, but now I need a man, you know, and
big issue.
Yeah, lost in translation. It hadn't twigged.
Yeah.
I wasn't communicating. And yeah.
So, you know, and then following on from that, when she becomes a mother, that's another dynamic, because all of a sudden she's not just your wife, but she's a mother to children. So that brings with it an added responsibility and expectation in terms of maturity, you know. And then there's a lot of different seasons that the relationship goes through. And one of the things that I've discovered is there's more investment required the longer you go in a relationship. One of the biggest issues, you know, many relationships have, I guess, is, you know, you are excited about it at the beginning. You invest a lot. You invest in terms of your time. You spend a lot of time on the phone with each other. You spend a lot of money on each other.
Yeah.
You know, you really pursue and pursue and pursue. And then what happens is there comes a time when you're comfortable. It's like you're comfortable with each other.
Because
you've captured her. She's captured. And then instead of, you know, sometimes what each party stops trying, you know. So you are no longer trying to be your best. You're no longer looking your best. You're no longer, you know, going out there to make an effort. And you know, we talk about this a lot of times in relation in regards to even the sexual aspect of your relationship, where, you know, the women, you're married now and you start pulling out all those big knickers that no one wants to see, you know, the ones that your granny left for you, you know, those kind of things. And you know, and people stop trying to pursue and impress one another.
I suppose that brings us to the point on boredom in marriage. Now, this is something that a lot of people will not talk about, and that really affects a lot of relationships. When we stop trying, when we stop pursuing one another, when we stop trying to impress one another, when we stop, you know, when we neglect to keep the flame burning, and when we neglect to look good and to impress one another, boredom can set in marriage. It's so easy to get into a routine. You know, you go to work, you come back, you pick up the kids, you know, you cook, you eat, you fall asleep on the couch and everything, and boredom begins to set in marriage. And we've had seasons, you know, there was a time I really just sat there. This was, you know, in my mid to late 30s, and I felt bored. I was bored stiff. We were pastoring, we had children, we had so much going on, but I was bored because I felt like we were not connected. You know, we were busy in the business of life. We were busy in the business of ministry. We were busy in the business of raising the children, but we were not connected as, you know, Jamie and Sarah. It was just, you know, mom, we were firefighting, you know, fighting the same battle, which is life and looking after the kids and providing and ministry and everything. But I found myself so bored. And then I just realized that if I didn't talk to Jay about it, he would never know that's how I'm feeling. And then another thing that really scared me, that I found that a lot at the time, you know, and this is something that really does happen, guys, but a lot of women, you know, mid-30s and so on, finding themselves bored, men too. And then that's when the drama starts. That's when the secret text starts. That's when the affairs happen. That's when the little rendezvous take place, because you're not paying enough attention to one another. So I addressed it. You know, I prayed about it, but I also spoke to him and I said, you know what, honey, I am bored stiff. I am bored. Things are not exciting me. And that was a really good chat, wasn't it? Yeah. It was a
great chat because, and then this is what we were talking about, how, you know, and it depends, you know, there's always going to be uncomfortable conversations in any marriage.
Yeah.
And I think if you shy away from those conversations, you are being unfaithful in this context. You're not being true to yourself, and you're not being true to your spouse. There are things that you need to address. There are things that you need to talk about. And when you talk about them, they will be the making of your relationship.
Absolutely.
Because you see, you know, certainly you were talking about the boredom aspect. One of the things I realized is, look, okay, you know, it's all well and good for us to be busy. And what's interesting is, at the time she's talking about being bored is at a time when she had everything. To the natural eye, she has everything she needs.
Yeah.
She's got a Chelsea tractor. She's got a 6-bedroom house. She's got everything, all of the trappings. But she was bored.
But it wasn't enough.
Which lets you know that it's not the money, it's the time, it's the time investment. It's going out there, you know, taking the walks together. It's going out there, holding hands. It's going out there, being intimate with each other, even in public, you know, letting the world know that we still feel we're absolutely crazy about each other all these years later. And, you know, I'm not gonna be trying to change her for a new model, because I don't need a new model. I need her, but I need to make the investment. And it's been interesting. Every time we've done that, it's like, you know, you get a renewal of your marriage and your love for each other, and you get more and more passionate for each other, and you begin to understand. And I really believe this now. I'm not just saying that, but I really believe that it's possible for you to love your spouse more the longer you're together.
Absolutely.
You know, that initial heady excitement morphs into something that is more powerful and more, intoxicating, because it's you've been through the storms, you've been through the fires, and you've made the decision to say, you know what, I want to be with you, not because it's convenient, not because I decided to, but because this is just the most awesome thing to share your life with somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But also important, and we spoke about this on a previous one, just to make sure that we invest the time to say, you know what, you've agreed to spend your life with me, so guess what, I'm going to make it worth your while.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Tanda, thank you for joining. It's a pleasure to have you on here.
Yeah. Shall we do another destructive pattern?
I think let's do another destructive pattern.
Before we finish off, hey? I think this one bears going back to, don't you think?
You can do. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Passive-aggressive warfare is another really
Sheila.
destructive pattern. We spoke about the silent treatment, and the silent treatment is passive-aggressive warfare, and it manifests itself in so many different ways. And it manifests itself in withholding of privileges. Privileges can be sex, can be just, companionship, can be money. If your relationship, maybe it's sort of like, balance that way, where maybe you're on the receiving end, so you feel like, I'll withhold treats, and it should never be that way. But unfortunately, that's how some relationships are. So you're not happy with your spouse, and you're going to go into this mode where you begin to restrict things. You restrict companionship. You start to play mind games to fix your spouse and to get back to one another. That is one of the most destructive things that we could ever do in a relationship. You should never, when you get to the place where you're looking at your spouse and thinking, I want to fix him, you need to stop and examine your heart. You need to stop and examine your motive. You need to stop and do a complete spring clean of your relationship and of your marriage, because you're on a slippery slope, and you will totally railroad and destroy that relationship.
It's, guys, marriage is a covenant.
Yeah.
And remember, the essence of a covenant as opposed to a contract is, in a covenant, your objective is to give each other the advantage. In a contract, you're trying to take advantage of one another and maximize the benefits that flow to you. And when you look at a covenant and you begin to understand the ramifications of that, you begin to realize it's not about me. It's about me doing the best by my spouse. My wife came to me this evening and she said, oh, I need some flour because I'm making lasagna and I don't have any flour. And I must admit, it's cold out there, we're in England, geez, man. I was like, oh my God. And there was a part of me that thought, you know what, I can do this. I've got a couple of options here. Either I can say I'm not going, which is not a great idea because we had a video to do. Or I can go with an attitude, or I can go, with an open heart and say, yes, absolutely, I'm going to go out there and actually enjoy going out there. And it's quite interesting about how that attitude made all of the difference, because that passive aggressive thing is, I'm going to show her, what is she doing? Here I am having fun. I've had a full day's of work. I'm here. I'm just enjoying my quiet time. And now I have to go to the shop, and you make an issue of it. And then, guess what? You come back home, you've got that attitude. She decides, okay, I'm going to fix you as well. And then before you know it, you're in a massive spiral, and yet it's not necessary. There's an openness of heart that we need to be able to develop, which says, you know what? I'm going to do my best to do you good. I'm going to do my best by you.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to allow myself to descend into this unhealthy pattern of saying, I want to hurt you, I want to punish you when you do me wrong, because you're not my child.
That's right. That's right.
You're not my child. You're my wife.
Absolutely.
And I have no right to treat you like a child.
Absolutely.
We punish the kids.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah. Not one another. Yeah.
Not one
Come
another.
on, Peter. What question do you have?
I'm assuming you're typing, so we'll wait for you to type.
Yeah, I think he's probably typing. Yeah. Oh wow. So Seb Mo is on as
Seb,
well.
hey, I trust you well. I'm so glad you're on here.
Liz Mahachi.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So guys, passive aggressive warfare is something that we absolutely need to stop. Ladies, Stop withholding sex.
No, we need to talk about that.
Yeah, I said it and I went there. You know, sex is so important to men. You know, I've heard the joke told where, you know, a young couple get married and she thinks, oh my gosh, what did I marry? This guy's a sex maniac. He's got a demon. And they go to the pastor and she says, pastor, you know, they go for counseling. Pastor, this man has got a demon. He's a sex machine. And the pastor says, I think I need prayer as well because the same demon afflicts me. So men need sex, guys. It is so important to men. And for speaking from our experience, we got married early. So initially it's just the thrill of sex, thoroughly enjoying it, and then you go into the season of childbearing where it's, you know, there were times I just didn't want to know about it, don't want to hear about it. I see him coming, I'm like, oh my God, pretend to fall asleep because I don't want to hear about it. Because it's just, you know, you feel overwhelmed. It's just the different seasons. And then entering my 40s and thinking, oh my gosh, you know, what have I been doing all along? I didn't know this thing was just so good. Sex is really good. Don't withhold sex as a form of fighting and warfare and fixing one another and settling a score. So you lock up shut-off systems and there is no through road. It's important. It's important.
You know, the worst thing that you can do, let me talk to the ladies. The worst thing that you can do is send your husband out into the world hungry. It's the dumbest thing you can do. Because I'll tell you one thing that I've noticed, and I've counseled so many people in this regard. You know, one of the things that has caused a lot of men to end up defaulting into pornography and sometimes into relationships is because, you know, illicit relationships, is because their wife decided that they were going to shut up shop, and they didn't understand that we don't want sex, we need sex.
Absolutely.
It's not a want, it's a need. It's a physiological need.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have sex, you don't function at the right level.
You don't think straight.
Your creativity is stunted.
Yeah.
You're going out there, you're distracted. These are very, very important things to talk about. And so, you know, I don't want to sound crass, but, you know, ladies, sometimes you have to take one for the team and understand that if you keep your husband satisfied, if you keep him satisfied, he can go out there, the world will get the best of him, and you will get the best of him. Pastor Isaiah's on here, I know this.
Yeah,
bless you, sir.
Bless you, Pastor Isaiah.
Thank you so much for being on here. It's so important. It's so important. So, you know, when you withhold sex from one another, it's a big issue. It's a big issue. And like I'm saying, it opens doors that you might not be able to close. You know, I remember one instance, this is probably about 3 or 4 years ago, counseling a young man in a marriage, you know, and his wife had shut up shop. And that's what opened the door to pornography. So he started dabbling and started going onto these sites and started masturbating and getting involved in all of this stuff. And then before you know it, he was out of control. He couldn't control himself. And then what was interesting is it even began to create resentment in him. So even with his wife, he was like, you know what, you've withheld it from me. So guess what? I'm going to withhold myself from you because I now have an outlet that you don't know about. I don't need you anymore. And then before you know it, you're in this massive spiral. It's a very, very difficult one to get out of. So the most important thing,
I really think, you know, if you're going to fight, don't use that. I think it's just an evil way of fighting. It's very unfair. It's an unfair way of fighting. It's
a terrible way.
Yeah.
You must just understand, men will naturally, over a relationship, will typically want sex more than their women. They just will. And you have to be able to discuss this in a very practical way. You know, you as men, I guess you also have to understand that there'll be times when you have to be sensitive to her needs, you know, particularly around that menstrual period when she's not feeling, you know, there's different ones. The women can go up and down like this during that period, but you got to be sensitive to how she's feeling and negotiate and discuss this thing. And I think the most important thing is the communication, because, you know, the worst place to be, I guess, is when everything is shrouded in uncertainty and secrecy and quietness, because then you don't know what each other is thinking. But I think when you're able to talk about it very openly and honestly, then you can deal with it and hopefully come to a happy medium where, you know, like as I said, you know, brothers, you can have it every day.
Max is asking, withholding sex from one another is a big issue in a lot of relationships. On average, men have a higher sex drive, that's true, than women. How can you reconcile the difference in a wise way?
Yeah. So that's what some of what we were talking about. It's important to have a conversation about it, to talk about it, to understand, to communicate your need, because sometimes you'll be amazed, your wife or your husband might not understand your needs and your issues in an area. The best thing to do is to put it out there and to talk about it very openly. And if it's an issue, then again, it's worth seeking counsel from people that you trust, people that are in marriage, who've experienced what you're experiencing, to be able to talk about these things openly. But I guess, ladies, what I'm trying to say to you, all of us men, there's not much difference. We're all the same. We want a lot of sex. Your husband is not a freak.
That's right. Peter Simon has got, if you find your spouse expressing themselves,
such as just
give me a child. How do you just cough out a child in your
Okay.
Or says, I'm not too concerned about marriage, but it's just the friendship.
Pastor Halston.
Bless you,
sir. Thank you for being on here.
If you find your spouse saying, I just want a child, I think the romance side of that relationship needs working on. It's important to woo each other. It's important the friendship is important. I think friendship is very important in a marriage, and is the thing that undergirds and keeps a marriage going through the different seasons of life. That's what's kept us going, because first and foremost, you and I are friends. This is my best friend. So even when we've gone through even the really tough patches and seasons, we're able to talk about stuff and discuss stuff, and even if it's those difficult conversations, and for me, that knowledge that, this is my best friend, the closest person in my life, I don't want to hurt him. So that's what's undergirded our marriage. But you're right, you can't just cough out a child. You guys need to talk. You guys really need to talk. A serious conversation needs to be had.
I'll say this from the perspective of men. When I remember, almost at every juncture that we've had a child, and every time my wife has come to me and said, I'm pregnant, she's excited about it from the female perspective, because she said to me so many times, I just love the feeling of a child growing in me. But guess what I do? Like most men, my mind immediately goes to the numbers, the hard numbers. Okay, so how much is this child going to cost? Because I'm already projecting 25 years into the future. I can see the school fees. I can see all of those costs. I have all of the stats about how much it costs to raise a child in the 21st century. And that's one of the biggest issues, because men, that's how we think. We're thinking very, very practically. And sometimes the women are thinking emotionally. So it can be a challenge. And I think what happens is it's a real conversation. It's interesting how, and we talk about this quite a bit, but it's interesting how when couples come together, they've never had the conversation around, when are we planning on having children? How many children are we planning on having? It's just kind of, it just happens by default. And that's not a healthy place to be, because I guess you need to really understand, if you have different expectations, that also creates a problem. And remember, with women, there's also a physiological dimension to this, where there's a certain stage where they desperately want a child, and you've got to understand that. And again, it boils down to conversation and communication, sitting down, talking about it and saying, look, be honest about how you're feeling. I'm not ready, or I am ready, or I feel like this is what we need to put in place, and hopefully come to a happy medium where you agree about the way forward.
Absolutely. My big sister Miriam is on, Sissy Mimia. She's asked, amen, pastors, how often are you going to hold these live sessions? I have a lot of young women who need to hear this message. We're going to try and do these twice a week. We're going to try and do at least 2 videos a week. The response has been so encouraging, overwhelming, as well as the questions as well. A lot of questions in our inboxes. Guys, it's great. Let's talk about stuff. Feel free to inbox us. Feel free for us to have a phone conversation if that's what you need, and let's help each other through our relationships and through our marriages. You don't have to go through hell on earth on your own when there is wisdom all around you. There's people who've been through what you're going through. There are times when you're stuck between, and you feel like you're between a rock and a hard place, and you think the only way is to jump ship, and yet there are people around you who've walked the same path, who understand. We've been been there, done that, and we can help each other through the difficult patches of life and of relationships and of marriage.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to say, one of the things that we're committed to doing is very, very important. These sessions are not designed to be just love one another, everything is going to be all right. We're doing our level best to talk about everything, to be very honest, to be talking about the challenges that we've experienced, how we've overcome those challenges, because I don't think anybody needs sessions where you just come here and put on a show. People are going through real issues. We've been privy to our own issues. God has helped us in so many ways to overcome them. It's incumbent upon us to help and give some of the bits of advice that we can give.
Absolutely.
And we're not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that we know everything, but 23 years in the game, we've learned an awful lot. And I think we just want to be able to impart some of that into people so that you can avoid some of the mistakes that we've made, but also so that you can make sure that your union can become stronger. And that's one of the most encouraging things that we've heard from these sessions. People sort of saying, wow, thank you for that. This has already started helping me.
Absolutely.
We get a lot of inboxes as a result of this, these videos. So whatever questions you have, there's nothing you can ask us that we're uncomfortable about talking about. Believe me, we're happy to talk about whatever it is. And hopefully in doing that and being very open and very vulnerable, that way you can actually get a lot of benefit. But a couple of
just before you carry on,
please,
I was going to say, Peter, I'm thinking we actually need to have a phone conversation. I think we need to have a phone conversation, because there's some things right now that you've just mentioned that are that go beyond just even this live scope. It'll be great for us to actually have a phone conversation or a sit down together. That's something we're also very open to.
Definitely.
And let's discuss this. This too, you can overcome. This too, there is a solution for where you currently are. Don't feel stuck. Don't feel like you're in a rut. Don't feel like it's impossible. Don't feel like oh my gosh, there is a way out of each and every situation.
Absolutely. Pastor Halston, women shut down and shut up sometimes because they're too busy, too domesticated, too analytical, worry about so many floods of thoughts in their minds, and believe it or not, then it goes on.
Oops. Cancel. And believe it or not, I can't see the rest
of it. Find the end of it.
Yeah.
I will have to come back to it.
Okay. Yeah. The first time I've heard. Okay.
Jesus is a role model for husbands. What can we learn from him? That's a great question, and vice versa. What can wives learn from Jesus? Well, the most critical thing when it comes to marriage, that's a great question, by the way, Max. When you look at what the scripture says in the book of Ephesians, it tells us as husbands, it says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And when you look at his example of how much Christ loved the church, Christ died for the church.
That's right.
And I've heard it said, and I've said it myself, that your battery's low.
Okay, it's all right. Okay.
And I've said it myself, that it's impossible for you to love a woman without dying. There comes in one of the previous sessions we did, we spoke about this, about how it's very important for you to know that you're going to have to put down some of your preferences and your way of doing things and how it's done. You're going to have to be willing to love with covenant love, because covenant love is vulnerable. Covenant love is willing to be misunderstood. It's selfless. It's not going to always demand its own way. I mean, you know what the scripture says. I believe it's in 1 Corinthians 13. Love is kind. It doesn't seek its own advantage all the time. That's what Jesus taught us. The greatest benefit for me being a believer is I came face to face with myself and understood how really badly I needed salvation. And I began to appreciate what my Savior did for me. And in many ways, that's the role that I play for my wife. I'm not her eternal salvation, but what I am is
You're my covering.
I am her covering. I have this very, very real role to play in her life that says, I'm a protector. You know, there's certain things I can overlook if you do to me, but I'm a bit more challenged if you do it to my wife, because I'm in her life as her protector, as her provider. I have to watch over her. I have to make sure she's taken care of. You know, I have to pray for her. I have to teach her how to pray. I have to,
pray for me even when I'm winding you up.
Even when she's doing stuff. You know, these are some of the things. But you know what? The greatest thing about it is, you grow up. You really, really grow up. And I've learned about unconditional love being married. You know, because when you first start out, you think you love each other. You think you love each other. But with the more you go into it, and the more you learn each other, and the more you're willing to protect her and provide for her and go out there. You know, there have been times when we haven't had any money, and I've been willing to do all the work and the jobs that I was determined that she wouldn't do, because she was my wife. I didn't want her out there hustling. I was happy to do it. I didn't want her to go into certain environments, because I was her covenant partner. And just like Jesus is our bigger covenant partner, and he gives us the majority of the advantages, that's exactly what I wanted to do for you, to make sure that you didn't have to go through some of this stuff. Absolutely. Because I was there for you. So I hope that helps. Yeah.
I think we should close over here. When husbands love, it is easy for the wife. So true, Miranda. So true. When your husband loves you, it is so easy to submit. It is so easy to surrender, because a man's love makes a woman melt. A man's love makes a woman melt. It just brings the softness and the femininity of a woman out. You know, when I know I'm loved, because of that, I feel safe. And because of that, it's so easy for me to submit. It's so easy for me to live a submitted and a surrendered life. So husbands, it's so important to love your wives. You know, I know that in relationships, sometimes there's the battle of the wills, but you know, someone has to die. Someone has to back down, because if you're both going to be, you know, hard-headed, you will lose the relationship, and you will lose the marriage. And I love that scripture, you know, that you've just given in Ephesians chapter 5. That is a great model for us to model our relationships over.
There's a question that came, which I think we should. Okay, you want to read that?
It's been said that behind every successful man is a prayerful woman. I know several women who are so frustrated with the way things are. For example, global recession or the Zimbabwean economy, and they, Farah, it's not opening.
Don't worry, but I think we kind of know where that's going.
Yeah. You
know, Farah, I wanted to actually say something. You know, something that we've been talking about quite recently. It's very, very important for you know, our women to pray for us, and that goes without saying. But you know, over the last 2 or 3 years, the Lord has really been speaking to us as men about the importance of us praying for our women. Yeah. Because when you read the scriptures, you'll notice that the patriarchs, the people that really were involved in prayer were men. Yeah. Abraham, you know, a man of prayer. You look at Elijah. You look at so many examples through the scripture. Yeah. It was the men. And you know, it's funny how we've relegated prayer to, it's kind of the women's responsibility.
It's been made a woman's,
You know, even for those in ministry, it's very rare to find men defining themselves as intercessors. They kind of say, well, that's the female stuff. And then what we do is we just do the sexy stuff, like the preaching. But the reality is, that's one of the biggest issues we have in ministry, is because a lot of the men aren't as prayerful as they need to be. So they're not as aware of what's going on. And it's very important for us to understand, yes, our women should pray for us. That's an honorable thing. But guess what? We need to pray for our women as well.
Absolutely.
Tucker's my big brother.
Yeah, I know he's your big brother. It's good to see you, Tucker.
Thank you, Tucker. Thank you. 30 years from now.
Yeah.
So 30 years from now, that's going to be interesting. But
we'll be great.
God willing, we'll still be here. I'll still be as madly, passionately in love with this woman as I have been.
Well, I'm not letting you get away, so.
You know, just a quick segue. But you know, I met her at 8. She was 14.
I was 13. You know, and you'd already turned 14.
I was 14.
Yeah, we're 6 months apart.
Yes, and I remember looking at her and thinking, and I'm not trying to be deep with this, I just remember looking at her and thinking, this is the one. she's the one. And I was trying to convince her, and she just
I
wouldn't
was
agree.
And
then I remember,
at that stage.
I remember that time we were. Then fast forward a couple of years, I'm in Prince Edward. I'm doing A level. She came to our school, and I'm talking to her, and I'm saying, I'm gonna marry you. And then she was saying, no, leave me alone. You with your deep self and your poetry, I'm not interested. But you know, the following year, it was short, 6 months later, I passed my A levels. I'd been accepted into law school at the University of Zimbabwe. She suddenly realized I had prospects. I ain't saying she's a gold digger, but she suddenly realized, you know something?
I'm not hanging with no.
Let me make a plan, you know. But that's a great thing. God's been really good to us, and yes, you know, 30 years, 40 years from now, we really believe in God will be here with us. You know, our children, our grandchildren, great grandchildren. We're really excited. You know, and just one last thing before we sign off, because I think we've kept you on here long enough. But Farai, thank you for that. Thank you for that compliment.
Thank you, Brian.
we wanted to just talk about the importance, finally, of growing together.
Okay, carry on.
Because when you're dealing with destructive patterns in marriage, one of the worst ones is lagging behind your partner in terms of your personal development. Do you want to weigh?
That's been a really big one that we've actually given a lot of people counsel on. Couples, make sure you grow together. When you lag behind, when your wife is improving herself, or your husband is improving himself, and you remain in the same place, you absolutely, without a doubt, more often than not, will become disconnected. So it's important for you to continue to grow together intellectually, stimulating conversation, grow together, read books together, learn things together, so that you're going from stage to stage together, and it doesn't feel like, you know, I'm up here, but you know, I've left him back here, and he's not trying to do anything to better himself or to grow. So it's really important.
You said you wanted to share a little bit of your testimony in that area.
Which one? I can't remember.
Because when we got married.
Oh yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think I experienced this firsthand actually. For all of my University of Zimbabwe people who went to uni back in the day with Jay, and even who've gone now. I mean, I've always said to Jay, I mean, you guys did like proper school, because the first time Jamie used a computer was for his dissertation. So literally, it was a glorified typewriter. There was no Google. You guys studied proper, you know. So it's something that I take my hat off to, you know, to all you learned people. But that's one thing in our early, years, when I was about, 23, 24, where I really felt a little bit intimidated, because I knew, he'd gone to university, all these really clever people, really clever girls and everything. And I felt like I needed as well to better myself, because I didn't want to be giving you boring conversation. I didn't want to be just like, this dumb chick, who can make babies and nothing else. And because of that actually, I felt the pressure to really just up my game. And I'm so thankful that I did that. And I think that's the stage at which we then decided to begin to grow together. So we read a lot of the same books. He reads a lot faster than me because of law school training. But we will discuss. We have a lot of varied conversations, and it's really stimulating, and it's really exciting. Yeah.
It's wonderful. One of the things that you always try and do, and I really believe that your spouse has it within them to be everything that you need them to be, and that a lot of what they can become is going to be a product of personal development. The worst thing that you can do for your spouse is to be the same person that they met 10 years, 15 years ago. It's a terrible thing. There is a requirement on everybody to be developing constantly, improving yourself, getting better, learning different languages, you reading books, discovering what is going on in the world out there, being able to engage in an intellectual conversation. Instead of having and this is something that easily happens. Where you might, in the first years, you're attracted to your wife maybe because she's very, very attractive. But if she's not got the same level of intellectual stimulation, as you get a little bit older, the sexual attraction is not enough. You want to be able to have real conversations. You want to be able to discuss politics, discuss economics, you know, be able to have a strategic thinker who can think, you know, sort of 20, 30 years in the future. Absolutely. And not be somebody who's just stuck there, who's a little bit of an airhead. You know, it's a terrible thing. So we really encourage couples.
It goes both ways. It's not just the guy, isn't it?
It's the woman as well, you know, because if the man is, you know, it's kind of lagging behind, is not focused on getting better, it's a terrible thing. So, absolutely. You know, you have to agree early doors. Where are we going together? And am I prepared to be the best me that I can be for you? It's not just about me being good for me, but it's also about becoming better for you, because you deserve the best, just as much as I do.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. And on that note, I hope this has been useful. Some of you guys have come on here. We've got so many questions that we're gonna you know, talk about. We're gonna get a bunch of inboxes after this, and we'll deal with some of it. A few telephone calls that we'll make as well. But brilliant, thank you so much. You know, thank you for being on here. Bless you again. I'm so excited about your book. All the best with what you're doing. You're doing a great job out there. For everybody who's been on here, I hope this has been a blessing. If you are able to share the video, please share it. You know, so that if you know anybody can benefit from it, pass it on to them. You know, God bless you guys.
See you in a few days, guys. We're gonna come back on in a few days' time.
What's today? Today's Monday.
Today's Monday.
Yeah, we'll be doing one in about 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
But hopefully, if you did come on, Anyasha, my cousin, I hope this was a blessing to you. But listen to it from the beginning. Hopefully, there's something that you can pick up. And Pamela, God bless you. Thank you for being on here.
Linda Rose. Thank you, everyone who shared.
Sue, bless you.
Thank you so much, guys. God bless
Patty,
you.
Bless you.
Keep on working on those relationships. It is well. You know, marriage is great. Marriage is great. Relationships are great. Peter Simon. Sorry, we're gonna have a phone conversation. Let's do that and let's work through this thing together. God bless you. Please, date and time. I'm thinking Thursday. I think Thursday. Probably do Thursday, early evening. Maybe Thursday about 6 p.m. Nyasha. Thursday, 6 p.m.
That sounds
How about we set a date for that? So see you on Thursday at 6 p.m. God bless you guys and have a great week until we meet. God bless. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.